I don't know how many of you noticed the topic for today, my title of my talk. But when I told Reverend Eileen, she asked me some weeks ago if I would be willing to speak, and she said, I need to know what you're going to speak about, so call me. And it was just kind of in a flash of a moment that I said, well, I know what I want to talk about. And she said, what's that? And she said, you know, our theme for the month is love. And I said, oh, yes, I know. It always is every year when I speak. And so with a little irritation, I said, so my title is Love Isn't Enough. And she looked at me rather quizzically, and she said, you know our word of purpose is love, don't you? And I said, yeah, I was there when we created that. But love isn't enough. And I that's what I want to talk about today. Years ago, there was the TV weekly show called ER. I think some of you are old enough to remember. There was a scene late in the series where one of the original characters, Dr. Mark Green, I love that man, he died. And it was poignant and sad, and yet it was a remarkable scene. And so I'll just go on and tell you what it was. It was the last scene where there was interaction between Dr. Green and his 14-year-old daughter. And he was lying in the hospital bed, apparently very weak, but he had enough strength as he whispered to his daughter, I've been trying to think of something profound to tell you. You're my daughter, and I want to have one thing that will last for you. And he said, I think I have it. And it's this. Be generous. Be generous with your time, your love, and your life. It was those three ideas. Be generous, first of all, so there's four. That's the first one. With your time, your love, and your life. Now, a few years after that, there was a rerun of that same program, and a fellow minister watched it and wrote an email to us, and I kept that all these years. You can't imagine what I've kept all these years. My book buddies know. But I have an office that's filled from top to bottom, both sides with books, and then I have this, I don't have one of those skinny file cabinets. I have one with 4 drawers and this big. We took the doors off a closet, and that's where I store all this good stuff. And I can pull out anything that I want to at any given moment on any subject, because it's in there somewhere. I just have to find it. So this is what she wrote, because she was deeply moved by the scene. And she began to recount the activities that she did in her day in relationship to be generous with her time, her love, and her life. So this is what she wrote. This morning I was walking back from errands and saw a McDonald's cup on the ground. It looked discordant with the wonderful spring flowers and the beautiful day. Did I pick it up? No. And it was then that I realized I was selfish with my life. Driving out to visit a new friend, I noticed a volleyball in the gutter of the street and about 8 kids hanging on the fence of their playground, looking out at the ball. Did I pull the car over and toss it back to them? No. But I did think about it. Nevertheless, I was stingy with my time. I was in a hurry, as usual. Anybody ever in a hurry here? My landlady's cat came up on the couch and tried to get me to pet him. But he's usually a grumpy old man cat, and I was busy. I was selfish with my love. At the end of the email, she asked, how many other times was I not generous? And so just rereading that again, I asked myself about that, and I went to the chiropractor the other day, and the cat who's been there for 16 years, I've been with him for about 14, knows me, and she's a wonderful little cat, big fluffy gray cat, and she sheds like mad, and I had on black pants, and as usual, she tried to get on my lap, and I put my purse there, so she couldn't do it, and I had already read this, and then I remembered, oh my gosh, I was being stingy with my time, what's a little hair on my pants? So I let her on my lap, and then just kind of petted her and picked the hair out and let it float somewhere else. But I'm telling you, it's just, it's amazing. So I would ask you the question, are you generous with your time, your love, your life? I think if we take that question with us from today, now, Friday was Valentine's Day, and here we are, moving on. I think the challenge is for us to be able to have Valentine's Day every day and really express the love that we are from our very being. So if you can say, well, most of the time I'm generous with my time, my life, my love, then you know that just to love is not enough. Love is a verb. Love is not a noun. It's not the name of something. Love is a verb. It has to show action. So that's why I was so flippant when I said to Eileen, well, love is not enough. And then I found Dr. Holmes affirms that for me by writing in the Science Mind text. Every act, there's the action, every act of human affection and love, of generous giving and receiving, of kindly relations with others, is an extension of the spirit of life flowing through us. Life is the great giver, and each one of us its distributor. Now, when I think of the word distributor, I also think of a carburetor. I mean, you guys, don't they go together, or they used to? I don't know if their cars still do that, but I'd never thought of myself as a distributor. Have you? But that's really what we need to be, are distributors of the flow of this infinite goodness that God has given to us. And then I think about the definition of love in the Science of Mind textbook. Oh, this is the Bible, but in the textbook. And it's love is the self-givingness of the Spirit through the desire of life to express itself in terms of creation. So it's the self-givingness. God, as the infinite self, has given to each one of us as a self this ability to let this love that God is flow through us and be what we are as life. In terms of our creative action, that's however we decide to use this creative principle. And then there's the flowing action of this love that we can't miss. But when we aren't distributors, it stagnates our being. Our batteries won't start, if you will. It makes people stingy and selfish and even greedy, if you ever wonder where that comes from. It's because they don't know who they are. So when we see that, we can have compassion for other people because they don't know what we know. And then at that given moment, you could even bless them with a treatment of your own, clearing your own consciousness about your judgments about what they're not doing. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That was the God seed. One of the greatest stories that I've ever heard about being a distributor of God's love is a true one. And I've told this before in my old days. But, and some of you might remember it, but it's profound, and it's true. It's about the little boy who was told by his doctor that he could save his sister's life by giving her some blood. Now, the 6-year-old girl was near death. She had been a victim of a disease from which the boy, her brother, had made a remarkable recovery 2 years earlier. Her only chance for restoration was a blood transfusion from someone who had previously conquered the illness. And since the two children had the same rare blood type, he was the ideal donor, of course. "Johnny, would you like to give your blood for Mary?" the doctor said. The little boy hesitated. His lower lip began to tremble, but then he smiled and said, "Sure, doctor, I'll give my blood for my sister." Soon the two children were wheeled into the operating room, and Mary, pale and thin, Johnny, robust in the picture of health, but neither spoke, yet their eyes met, and Johnny grinned. As his blood siphoned into Mary's veins, one could almost see new life come into her tired body. The ordeal was almost over when Johnny's brave little voice broke the silence. "Doctor, when do I die? When do I die?" It was only then that the doctor realized what the moment of hesitation and the trembling of the lower lip had meant earlier. Little Johnny actually thought that in giving his blood to his sister, he was giving up his life. In that brief moment of decision, he truly was a distributor of God's love, doing what Dr. Mark Green had told his daughter by being generous with his life to the point that he thought he was going to die. I just have never gotten over that story. It's the most amazing thing I think I've ever heard in my life of how a child's mind could come to a conclusion such as that. Now, as we mature, we find it easier to be generous with our time, our life, and our love when it's with good friends, nice neighbors, kind strangers. But what about loving our enemies and doing good to those who hate us and bless those that curse us? That's a heady order, isn't it? But it's from Scripture, and it's, I believe, a metaphysical principle. Love our neighbors, do good to those who hate us, and bless those that curse us. Well, hard as it is, we have the power to do that. And it comes through our ability to be a distributor. And the way that we distribute is to initiate. You have to initiate the action that love calls for. To initiate means to begin. Robert Schuller, pastor of the Crystal Cathedral, had an accident, and the man that hit him was swearing and raging at him. And Dr. Schuller said, "Look, fella, God loves you, and I'm trying." But you see, we have to do more than try. Try actually means fail. We have to begin. We have to initiate. We have to act through a choice that we make. We always have choices to make. But we get so caught up in our emotional judgments that somehow love just goes by the wayside, and then the distributor of resentment and anger and every other emotion that we could think of that's detrimental and not really what we mean to do. How many times have we been snippy and snarly and said something that we really didn't mean in the moment, and then later on we're so ashamed or felt guilty or felt really not good about what we did. Anybody, or is that just me?
No.
So we can begin. So I have a few ways that we can do that. The first one is that you have to be sure that you love and nurture yourself. Be kind to yourself is what Louise Hay tells us. Be kind to yourself. Life is a reflection, and often the conflicts or the way that we confuse ourselves about what's going on and what we believe and our expectations are reminders of our error beliefs when we become aware. And they need to be changed. Remind yourself, I am the son or the daughter of the living God. Let's say that.
I am the daughter.
Hang on. The guys say son and daughter. Women say daughter. Okay. I am the daughter of the living God. But again, I am the daughter of the living God. I am the daughter of the living God. There's something alive and well in all of us, but we have to tune into it. It's always been there. It never goes away. No matter how bad things seem in the outer, the moment that you turn inward and allow yourself to sense that presence, it's there. I was taking a class one time, and one of my classmates did a guided visualization, I guess it was, and it was about surrounding ourselves in white light, or surrounding something in white light, to ensure that no matter where we are or what we're concerned about or the fears that we have, that once you know there's light in that place, all is well. And so he said, and you could try this if you like, just close your eyes for a minute and think of something that you've been worried about or concerned about, and then surround that in light. And then open your eyes. Open your eyes. You don't have to work on it. That's what I did too, but he admonished us and said, the moment that you think light, because the light is all, you don't have to generate the light, you don't have to make it happen, it is already there. I just have thought that was the most profound thing I've ever known. And so, and I know I've shared that before with the students, maybe you've forgotten it. I forget it from time to time. I've tried to convince my husband about it, especially when he gets concerned about, did I put the garage door down, or what about the cars being locked down? Well, just surround it in light, it's okay. You can't go back now. It's just fine. So I spend a lot of time convincing him that there is light and love and it's everywhere. It's just all that is. So, reminding ourselves that we are the sons and daughters of the living light, that the living God, and God is light. We take it everywhere we go. So if we take it everywhere we go, you don't even really have to turn it on, you have to think about it. Your thought is the light switch. Your thought is the mechanism through which energy pours forth through us. So be careful what your thought is, you see? And then the other thing that we can do to begin being distributors of God's love is to separate the deed from the doer. I kind of touched on this, but and the best way to do that is to remember the story of the little soul and the sun. I don't know how many of you know that. It's a children's story. And I have also used this. I mean, after 40 years in the ministry, there isn't hardly anything I haven't used. Hardly anything new under the sun. Especially me. And so, the little soul and the sun is this little soul goes, this is in heaven, and the little soul goes to God in heaven and says, I want to go to earth. And God says to the little soul, well, you can't go to earth. And he said, well, why not? And he said, well, because if you go to earth, then you have to have somebody who will promise to show you the darkness, because there's light on earth, but there's also darkness. It's dual nature. That's what we are here in the physical realm, the dual aspects of our being. So he said, and the little soul said, okay, well, okay. And one of his little friends, another little soul, stepped up and said, I'll be the darkness. And so they went to earth, and then sure enough, little soul's living his life, and then the other little soul had to show up as an experience that was not very pleasant. And what God told him before they came to earth is, you have to remember, it's your job to remember what little soul came to do for you. That was to show you the darkness. And when he shows you the darkness, you can't blame him. You have to love him. Well, how easy is that? But you see, that's what we're given to do. We are to have compassion for those people in our lives who show up and give us pain of some sort. Take something from us, do something to us, say something about us, or something that makes us feel less than who we are. And we forget our divine nature. We also forget that they came to show us the light as well, so that we could remember who we are. Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. That's Rumi. Very profound. The only reason that we don't have all of the love in our lives that we desire or have ever hoped for is because we have barriers that we've built in our own mind about life and love. They're false ideas. They're limiting concepts. There's things that one person I know had a barrier that was this: people are no damn good. Anybody ever heard that? Well, how many experiences do you think in their lives that they drew to themselves through the law of attraction with that idea, that barrier?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. Every place this person turned, there was a person to show them people are just no damn good. And it went on until I pointed out to this person, with a belief like that, you will continue to attract different people with even different experiences, and sometimes the same one over and over and over again until you change your mind. And so little by little, this person over the years changed his mind and became a wonderful, loving practitioner. It was amazing to watch. It took years, but it was an amazing process. And then, once you find the barriers, the call is to forgiveness. So I have given you a prayer of forgiveness in your program. And I think I do have time to read that together, and then I'll close off. And it is this. You don't have it? Mm-hmm. Okay, together. If I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly through my own confusions, I ask his or her forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly through their own confusion, I forgive them. If there is a situation I am not yet ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that. For all the ways that I harm myself, negate, doubt, belittle myself, judge, or be unkind to myself through my own confusions, I forgive myself. Now just close your eyes for a moment and let that sink in. Most of all, forgiving yourself is the way to salvation. It's the way to your saving grace. It's the way to let go of your judgments and your opinions that keep you stuck. And then allowing that for other people unsticks them as well. It's an energy that you're allowing to be supportive of your own selves. So with that said, you can open your eyes and know that you've done something really profound here. And as I close, I don't know, I didn't know this, and I don't know how many of you realize it, but Oscar Hammerstein wrote a lyric for which there is no melody. One night, he sent a handwritten note to actress Mary Martin just before she was to go on stage to perform Sound of Music. Mr. Hammerstein was on his deathbed at the time. I understand he died 6 months to a year later. But he wanted the performer to know how he felt about her and her musical talents. And the note read simply, "A bell is not a bell until you ring it. A song is not a song is not a song until you sing it. Love in your heart is not put there to stay. Love isn't love until you give it away." So I charge you, give your love away, because just to love is not enough. God bless you in your journey. Namaste.
Namaste. Good job.
Would the ushers please come forward?